Hello, I'm Dr. Baxter Bell for Chipper. In this segment, I'd like to share with you a simple pose that you can do to help with the pain of sciatica. Sciatica is a pain that originates in the lower back or buttock area and travels down the side or back of the leg toward the foot. It's often associated with issues like disc problems in the lumbar area or a very tight muscle called the piriformis in the gluteal area, the buttocks area of the body. So this pose that I'm going to show you is a modified version of something called pigeon pose. It's got a very long and complicated Sanskrit name, Ekapada Rajakapotasana, that always makes people smile whenever I say that in my classes. So we're just going to call it pigeon for brevity's sake today. So what you'll need to do this is some sort of a lift. I'm going to use a yoga bolster. You could take a pillow and fold it up and wrap a belt around it to make a homemade bolster. So don't feel compelled to go out and get one of these right away, but take a look at how I get in and out of the pose and then look around at what you have at home and you'll probably be able to find something that'll work very nicely for you. Also, because this is a wooden floor, I'm using a blanket to pad my back knee because the knees are sensitive. So that's all you'll need. If you have yoga blocks, you could use them, I suppose, for your hands, but keeping it simple, these two things should be adequate. So I'm going to show you how to get in and give you a couple of different positions to do while you're in the pose and how to exit from the pose as well. So the first thing you want to do is have your blanket sideways on your practice area. Take your bolster or your cushion of some sort and put it crosswise right in front of your blanket, and then come up to a kneeling position for a moment. I'm going to bring my right leg forward of the bolster to start. And from here I may have to lean down a little bit because I'm going to want to wiggle my right foot over to the left a little bit, and then I'm going to walk my hands out and down, and I'm going to come onto the outer edge of my foot and very carefully using my arms, scooting my back knee back a little bit, I'm going to lower my front knee down to the floor. As I do that, this right buttock and gluteal area is going to come onto the bolster for support. So I'm actually sitting right on that bolster. I like to turn my bolster a little diagonal because I like this leg to be at a 45-degree angle with your mat. You may look at books and see pictures of pigeon pose where the front shin is parallel with the mat. That takes incredibly open hips, and if you're already suffering from sciatica, you don't want to add knee pain to your problem. So let's work with the leg tucked back at this angle. I usually look back to make sure that my back leg is pretty straight behind me, the top of the foot's on the floor, and then I start with my arms straight. I can even walk in a little bit closer to get a little more vertical. So, if I'm having some lower back symptoms that are traveling into my leg, I want to notice as I come into a gentle back bend if that move feels okay for my body. If it does, then definitely work here because this is going to give you a really great stretch at the front of your back leg, and there's a muscle deep inside there called the psoas muscle that can also be a part of low back issues. So you might get some benefit from being in this upright, more back bendy version. Now, stage 2 is to come into a more forward bending variation over the front leg. So I'm going to come down onto my forearms and see how that feels. I definitely get some increased sensation in the right gluteal area that's on the bolster. So that's nice because that's an area that I'm looking to stretch a little bit with this. Some of us will stay here because this is going to be about as far down as we can go safely without bringing too much sensation into that front hip. However, there may be some of you out there that can actually go a little lower, so you could stack your hands, round the back gently, and bring your head down onto your forearms. Once you're in position, you can stay, if it's comfortable for you, with just a decent amount of stretch but not too intense, you can stay for 6 breaths, 8 breaths, or you could stay up to a minute and a half in this position if your body's doing okay with that. If there's no pain and you're simply feeling a really nice stretch in that front hip area. To come out, you're going to begin to walk your hands back up and in, and then I turn my back toes under. I'm going to push myself up and back and bring my front leg around behind the bolster. So anyway, you can get that leg out of there for a moment, and sometimes it feels really good to just take a second and be in a kneeling position just to open up that front hip. Let's do the second side just for completeness sake. So sometimes your sciatica will be only on one side, but it's probably reasonable to do both sides, even in that situation, because again, sometimes the issue is more of the front muscle, sometimes it's more in the back, and this way you're going to cover both sides very nicely. So we're going to step our other foot forward. We're going to lean down a little bit. I'm going to put my fingers on the floor and wiggle my foot over to the opposite side of the sticky mat, almost to the edge. And then I'm going to guide myself with my arms slowly down so my knee comes down softly. I'm then going to take that bolster and move it a little more diagonally so that I can get that outer buttocks, my left buttocks, onto the bolster. From here, I'm going to check my back leg, make sure it's pretty straight behind me, and then I'm going to press down into my fingertips and lengthen up through the spine. Listening to the back, making sure that that's not aggravating your sciatica symptoms, but might feel better. Noticing any stretching at the front of your back leg, the straight leg behind you. And again, staying for 6 to 8 breaths initially is not a bad idea, and then working your way up to longer holds in this position over time as your body acclimates to this shape. Then, stage 2 is to see how it feels to come down onto the forearms. Instead of kind of hanging my head down, I usually let my head stay in line with my spine. I notice the amount of sensation I'm feeling in this area. If it's reasonable or even light, then I might say, maybe I could go a little bit deeper. To go deeper, I like to stack my hands up and then let my body come down a little bit lower and rest my head on to my hands. Once you find the spot that's good for you, whether it's on the forearms or head in the hands, you'll want to start with a hold of 6 or 8 breaths and then eventually work your way up to maybe a minute and a half, conceivably even 2 minutes. I've already shown you how to get out of this by moving backwards. Also notice that as you come up, you could simply lean a little bit towards your left and bring your back leg around in front of you as another good way to get out. So you have both the stepping back or the coming around with the back leg. So the pose for sciatica today that I've shared with you is a variation of pigeon pose. Remember, you'll need a bolster and a blanket to do this on your own. Start off gradually. Make sure it actually feels better for your body. If it actually aggravates things, skip this one and look for another option for you today. You might want to finish your practice with the relaxation breath practice, which you can do now. Thank you.